It's such a pleasure to be with so many wise Hollyhock friends, so thank you for joining. My topic today was really informed by a very personal story and recent experience that's really informed my perspective and my underlying way of seeing this crisis. And that is that 3 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And not only did we together have a health crisis, but it also plunged us into a financial crisis because just before that diagnosis, we had made the decision for me to work with him and dedicate my time and effort into his business. We were so fortunate at that time to have the wise counsel of longtime Hollyhock presenter, Dr. Stephen Ong. And he really helped us reframe this crisis and give us hope. And what he told my partner is, in traditional Chinese medicine, Parkinson's is understood as loss of spiritual connection. And that ability to reframe that crisis for us gave us hope in how to dedicate our efforts and how to understand it. And I'm sure that every single one of you have been through your own health crisis or have had a friend or family member been in a health crisis. How many of you have had that? And some of you may also know that through those crises, there are very precious ways that they deepen us. Has anyone experienced some of the deepening of compassion or patience or forgiveness or vulnerability? So I also noticed that. And what I noticed is that it deepened my own heart in compassion, in patience. It deepened our relationship and friendship. And, in the most difficult times of crisis and challenge, there was a felt sense of tenderness and intimacy that I think is only possible when our sense of normal is interrupted. How many of you can relate to that sense of tenderness that accompanies vulnerability? I've been studying spiritual traditions for many years. In Buddhist traditions, some of you probably also have studied them and know that there is a lot of emphasis on suffering and death. And in Sufi traditions, contemplations on death. And in yogic traditions, the final pose in asana class is corpse pose. Have any of you ever noticed that very strong thematic of death and suffering? And I think that what it really is indicative of is that it is a part of nature, it is a part of natural cycles, and sometimes it is a part of our evolutionary growth. I would love to just see a visual of how many of you have experienced growth through very painful circumstances. So this is, I think, the deeper calling of this crisis, which is not to deny that there is a lot of pain and suffering. There is a lot of loss and a lot of readjustment that's required as we attend to this loss and interruption to our normal sense of life. And the question is, how can we tap into something within us that gives us stability? And from that place of stability, access our creative capacities. And when I say creative, I'm not talking about artistic. I'm talking our ability to create and invent something new. That's such an important question, and I think there's all of us who are touched by mental illness, whether it's ourselves or a family member or a friend. We might personally have had episodes of darkness or know people who, right now, I know of a friend in particular who's really plunged into a very difficult darkness. I think we do it together. I think when we can't do it alone, we invite people into our lives who can walk with us. One of the major learnings I learned from supporting my husband through his health crisis is that it is a very powerful thing to walk with someone and trust that they have the inner resources and they can do it themselves, but our presence in walking beside them gives them an additional source of strength. And I think that when we don't feel we have it within ourselves, that's when we reach out to community. That's when we take shelter in community and we find the friends or therapists or counselors or partners or people who can walk with us. And they don't do it for us, but they just walk beside us to make sure that we don't get consumed and to give us that belief in ourselves. I am in relationship with a master teacher, and it's a difficult relationship because he always holds me up to a higher expectation than I have of myself. And I think that the wise friends in our life hold that belief in us. So I hope that speaks to what you were asking. I think it's very valid what you're saying. I think it's absolute valid, and I think there's a lot of people who feel the same way. I think that it is so important right now to find the ability to be present with whatever is arising. And for some people, that's waves of worry or fear, and we can learn to use our breath and give space and be present with that. For some of us, when we go outside, it's the beauty of the cherry blossoms, or the blue sky and the sun and the feeling of warmth on our skin. And I think it's so important at a time like this to feel that fully. As much as we're able to feel fully the waves of sadness or worry or anxiety, we also need to be fully present to the joy that is here. You know, as the earth is coming alive again, this is such a precious and special time of year. I think it's so important not only to be fully present with that, and it's imperative that we're fully present with it, because I think it's our lack of being present with ourselves, our lack of being present with the environment and nature that actually has led us to this crisis, where somehow we've been, our sense of normal has been interrupted. And probably, I imagine for many of you, you can show with your hands, what is normal about our society that we live in prior to this? How many of you feel that it's not normal the way we've been living? Maybe we're over-consuming, we're excessively focused on the external, we're disconnected with nature, we're not connected with ourselves. So now really is the time to be present. And if beauty is your experience, please fully be present with that. It is a part of the solution. It is a part of the way forward. It is a part of our connection that is going to be restored through this crisis. What if it was a calling from the nature and animal realms that interrupted our sense of normal, so we would be able to be present to the sunshine and the moon and the trees and the forests? Absolutely. And you know, the other thing that I think is happening, I see there's a question from Kaylee about how it's challenging to embrace joy or pleasure when people are suffering. You know, one way that I find it's helpful for me to remember that there are people who are suffering at a time when I'm experiencing something else is I dedicate the vibration or feeling of that to those who don't have it. So if you're experiencing beauty of a cherry blossom, you dedicate that beauty to those who aren't able to see it at this moment. You know, you dedicate your sense of happiness to people in nursing homes who might be feeling isolated. And I think it's through that dedication that you're able to remember the whole of everyone who's a part of it, and you're also able to fully embrace what is your authentic experience in the moment. Absolutely, absolutely. One of my practices is every time I sit and breathe or meditate or do my movement practice and it generates a positive, harmonious vibration and feeling within my heart, then I always end that practice with a dedication that others may also partake and benefit in that feeling. I think that's such an important part of establishing our interconnectedness, that spiritual practice is not just for our own benefit and well-being. It was always intended to be for the well-being of all. And it's only through remembering all in the times that we practice that we're really able to fully honor the essence of those traditions. Yes, and I also see that there's a question in the chat about my own personal practice. So one thing that I find very grounding and anchoring in times of instability and uncertainty is routine. Routine is incredibly important. It gives structure to our days. It gives us stability and a sense of normalcy when things are very chaotic around us. And in particular, in terms of establishing an inner stability and connection to our spirit and our hearts, I think it's very important to commit to a routine that includes a practice where you sit and breathe and you be with yourself and you be with the present. And if you can build that into your routine, and another aspect I should say is for people who resonate with the aspect of prayer, whether it's a prayer of well-being, you know, a prayer that has been passed on from a tradition that we can say those words and they bring us comfort. You know, prayer or sitting and breathing or meditation or a movement practice or anything that allows you to find inner stability is so important at a time like this to build a sense of stability within ourselves and to build a sense of connection to our spirits and our hearts. It's important for the people around us, if we live with others, that we also do this on a regular basis since we're in close quarters now, and that might put additional pressures on the relationship. So I would say routine and habits, and especially committing to some practice or ritual that resonates and brings you into your heart. That's one thing. The second thing is, how many of you already have been finding that spending time in nature every day is helping you? There is a calming, soothing, biochemical, physical process that happens when we are in the forests, when we are close to the ocean, when we gaze at the sky. It is a real thing, and we need it now more than ever. And so I would say in times of uncertainty, and this includes myself, I include sitting and breathing practice. I have a prayer practice. I have a schedule, and my schedule includes outside nature time, and that routine and schedule that happens 6 days a week, and 1 day of the week I get to go off my schedule and eat grilled peanut butter and jam sandwiches when I wake up in the morning. So, you know, the right amount of structure and discipline, and to balance that with flexibility and to include certain things as a foundation. And foundation right now should be being present with ourselves, being present with nature. I'm hoping that for most people, they can at least open the window.
Fresh air.
They can open the window, they can gaze outside, they can see the sky, they might be able to open their door or feel the sun on their skin, or they can see it. However you can include nature, I think is helpful. Yeah, maybe rather than explain the question, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. What I would love to do is just sit with all of you together and breathe together, that we kind of can come to a place within ourselves of inner quiet that can help us find a deeper reflection and offering when we answer the questions. So is that all right?
That's a great idea, yes.
Great. So maybe if all of you can come to a comfortable sitting position in your chair or on your couch or whatever it is, wherever you are. And once you find that place, close your eyes and feel your body from the inside. And take a few moments to anchor your body into your position and let go of any tension in the muscles. That you find a sense of softness in the facial muscles. Allowing for relaxation in the space between the eyebrows. And softening around the mouth and lips and jaw. And then bring your awareness to the abdomen. And feel the inhalation and exhalation of breath. And feel a settling in and slowing down of your heartbeat. And a slowing down of the breath. And visualize that you are sitting in a beautiful outdoor space. And you're breathing in the sounds and smells and the feeling of Mother Nature. She has been seeking our attention for a long time, and she lovingly embraces us in this moment. Just a few more moments being present in your body with the breath and hearing the birds. And as you're ready, gently opening the eyes.
The wind just came up as we were coming back into the group space. The out breath by Mama here behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Farah. That was great. Yes, this is a much more more grounded place. We're all grateful. Some of you can see Winnie's holding up a sign that says grateful. I feel much more in my body to go into these groups. So will you tell us the two questions you want us to?
Oh yes, the questions. The first question is, what parts of our culture and society are under threat in this crisis now? And what are we willing to or ready to let go of personally and collectively? The second question, just so you can hear it, is now at this very critical moment in human history, how can we reinvent ourselves and use our creative capacities personally and collectively to be in right relationship with ourselves, with nature, and with each other? It's really inspiring to see how many of you are finding inspiration in connecting with each other, and how great it feels to connect, and that our connection is so critical. I've been thinking about how this crisis helps us to really get clear on what's important. And what's so important is health, food, connection, and nature. And I feel that there is a lot of wisdom in all of you and in all of our hearts. And now is a time to really tap into that and call that forth and bring that into the world, because it's so needed right now. So let's end with a practice and a dedication to tap into our hearts and give us the courage to lead. Because I think we're all needed to lead at times like this, to lead with our hearts and be the creative leaders that we all are. So sit comfortably. If you're not already sitting comfortably, close your eyes. And let's bring our palms and our awareness into our heart space. You can bring both palms to the center of the chest. And feel your breath in your heart space. And take a few moments to really feel your heartbeat and your breath. To feel relaxed and at ease. And to breathe into our heart space. You can visualize a clear, radiant light emanating from your heart. And now we visualize radiating this light and the feeling at our heart to all those who are in this moment experiencing worry, anxiety, or fear. and our wish that they may have the comfort of someone close to them, to walk beside them and support them. And think now of radiating your light, your heart's light, to all those who are overworked and exhausted, whether they're healthcare workers or grocery store clerks or truck drivers or politicians or leaders. All those who are exhausted and tired and at risk. And we radiate our heartfelt gratitude for their efforts and our wish that they be safe. And we connect our hearts to all those who are isolated, socially isolated, whether they're in nursing homes or whether they struggle with mental illness, or people who are feeling lonely and really feeling deeply the loss of physical and social connection. And with our heart's energy, we visualize embracing them and comforting them, that they may know that they are not alone. And lastly, we connect not only with the tender qualities of our heart, but in the courageous and fierce qualities of our heart in this time, to stand up and speak out and really allow our highest vision for the world to come into being. And then you can bring your palms together in front of your heart space and gently open the eyes. And you can send out your resonating energy. I want to thank all of you. It is inspiring for me that so many people are seeking connection and seeking insight. It is such a positive, hopeful thing to know that there's so many of us who are really looking for meaning and trying to find purpose in the crisis that's facing us. And I also want to acknowledge all of you for your practice. I feel like you are able to easily settle into a sense of quietness, and that speaks to your commitment to whatever spiritual practice you have. And it's always a delight to be with other people in solitude and in practice. So thank you to all of you, to Karen and Ling and Loretta and Peter and all of the birds. I want to thank the birds for their soundtrack, which was such a wonderful addition to our program. And some of you have messaged me privately. In the next couple minutes, I will respond privately. And thanks again.